Hello, I'm going to explain what the astrological ages are, and specifically what the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius is, and when they begin. This video is a shorter and simpler version of a video I made almost 3 years ago, back in 2015. The video I made in 2015 is still very good. I recommend it. It goes into some details that I'm not going to cover here. But I think that video in 2015 is a little difficult to follow, so I'm making this one, which is simpler and I think a clearer explanation of what the ages are. And I have this in 15 points. Point number 1, as I mentioned, you've heard that we're going from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the idea, whether you're a student of astrology or not. Is this something astrologers really believe in, or is it an idea that just comes out of the media? Answer, yes, it's a real idea that most astrologers believe in. Point number 2, an astrological age lasts about 2,160 years. So we know how long the ages are. They are defined astronomically, and in a few minutes I'm going to describe what creates the ages. But for now, I just want to lay out the fact that we know how long the ages last. What we don't know is exactly when they start. There are disagreements about this. Most astrologers believe the age of Pisces began roughly around the year 200, usually within about 200 to 300 years of the year 200. So most people set it somewhere between about 100 BC to 500 AD. That's a lot of difference of opinion. So if the age of Pisces began in the year 0, then the age of Aquarius begins in the year 2160, which is, say roughly about 150 years from now. And some people put it even closer to us than that, and others don't have the age of Aquarius beginning for another 300 or 400 years from now. So we know how long the ages last, but there's disagreement about when the ages begin. And like I said, in a few minutes, I'm going to get into the astronomy of this and why there are differences of opinion. But I just want to lay out some of the basic facts about the ages first. Point number 3, do we really care about this transition from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius? Do astrologers think it's important? Answer, yes, because the belief of many astrologers is that during the age of Pisces, the entire world, regardless of what country you live in, tends to have a Piscean personality, a Piscean orientation to life. And as we transition to the Aquarian age, the whole world starts to develop more, more of an Aquarian personality. Pisces is a water sign, it's more emotional. Aquarius is an air sign, it's more intellectual. It's believed that Aquarius has a lot to do with networking. So some people see the development of the internet, and even preceding that, the television, the radio, as symptoms that we really are getting close to entering the Aquarian age, which is more intellectual, more networked, more integrated around the globe. And that's why this transition is important, because culture around the world changes and lifestyle changes. Okay, so that's some background information on the ages. Now let's dig in to understanding what creates the ages. Point number 4. We need to get some background information to understand what the ages are. There are 3 zodiacs. There's a tropical zodiac, a sidereal zodiac, and a constellational zodiac. The tropical and sidereal zodiac have 12 signs, and each sign has 30 degrees in length, and the order of the signs is Aries, Taurus, Gemini. So there's a lot of similarities between the tropical zodiac and sidereal zodiac. Again, they both have 12 signs, each sign is 30 degrees, and the order of the signs is the same. The constellational zodiac, on the other hand, does not have signs that are 30 degrees in size. They vary in size. The order is still the same, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, but the size of each sign is different. Okay, I'm just laying out some background information, because point number 5 the astrological ages are created by the relationship of the tropical zodiac and the sidereal zodiac. So it's the relationship between those two zodiacs that creates the ages. So we need to understand what the tropical zodiac and the sidereal zodiac are and how they relate to each other, and then we understand what creates the astrological ages. So let's start with the tropical zodiac. The beginning of the tropical zodiac, which in other words is the beginning of the sign Aries, because Aries is the first of the 12 signs, and each sign has 30 degrees, so sometimes we call it 0 Aries, meaning 0 degrees, 0 minutes, that very beginning of Aries. So that beginning point of the tropical zodiac, which we can call 0 Aries, moves backwards through the sidereal zodiac. This is an astronomical fact. In a few minutes, I'll explain what the sidereal zodiac is, but I've just got to lay out one point at a time for all the pieces of this puzzle, and then you'll see the whole puzzle. So the 0 Aries point in the tropical zodiac moves backwards through the sidereal zodiac, and it moves very slowly. Relative to human time, it's very slowly. It moves 30 degrees. There's that number again, every 2,160 years. That's what's creating the ages. As the tropical zodiac, the beginning of the tropical zodiac, that 0 Aries point, every 2,160 years, that 0 Aries point in the tropical zodiac moves into a new sidereal sign. The sidereal sign that the 0 Aries of the tropical zodiac moves into is the astrological age. And a speed of 30 degrees every 2,160 years comes out to about 1 degree every 72 years. So again, the 0 Aries point moving 1 degree every 72 years means that after 2,160 years, tropical 0 Aries moves into a new sidereal zodiac sign. And that means, by the way, that the tropical 0 Aries point will go through all 12 sidereal signs in a little over 25,000 years. And this movement of tropical 0 Aries through the sidereal signs is well understood. It's known by astronomers, and it's called precession of the equinoxes because of the astronomical dynamics of what causes that 0 Aries in the tropical zodiac to move backwards through the sidereal signs is based on changes in what's called the equinoxes. We don't need to get into that technical detail right now. I just want you to understand that there is a tropical zodiac, there is a sidereal zodiac, and the tropical zodiac is moving backwards through the sidereal zodiac at a speed of 30 degrees every 2,160 years. Now, let's think about this tropical 0 Aries a little bit more. Tropical 0 Aries is where the sun is when spring begins. And it's also known as the vernal equinox. So in the background here, I have a map of the sky. This is in the Sirius 2.0 software. A map of the sky for the date of March 21st, 1500. Okay, so this is what, over 500 years ago. And we're looking at, on the left side, the sky above us. If we were in London, England, on March 21st, 1500, using what we call a new style calendar. There's technicalities about what calendar you're using. And at 10 hours, at 10 o'clock GMT, this is what the sky above us looked like on the left. What's on the right is the sky below us. And here's the sun. This yellow circle is the sun. And notice that it's where this green curve and this yellow curve intersect. Where they cross each other is where the sun is, and March 21st is the beginning of spring. And where these two circles intersect is the 0 Aries point, also known as the vernal equinox. So astronomers define the vernal equinox as the point where the ecliptic plane, the ecliptic plane, which is this green curve, it's actually a circle going all the way around us. this is the apparent path of the sun through the sky, where the ecliptic plane intersects, or in other words crosses, what's called the celestial equator. The celestial equator is the equator of the Earth extended out into the sky. All right. If you're not familiar with these astronomical details, all this terminology may sound intimidating, and you don't need to be that concerned about it. All I want you to know is that there is a way that astronomers clearly define where the vernal equinox is. And this vernal equinox, this point where these two circles, the celestial equator and the ecliptic plane, intersect, that's the vernal equinox, which is called 0 Aries in the tropical zodiac, and the opposite point, they will intersect at an opposite point, which is 0 Libra. So March 21st, beginning of spring, there's the sun right on the vernal equinox. Okay, now this vernal equinox, as I mentioned before, is going to move through the sidereal zodiac, and which also means it's moving through the constellations. So right now, this vernal equinox is in a particular constellation. It's in the constellation of Pisces. This triangular shape here is the constellation Pisces, and the vernal equinox is in Pisces. That's why we are in the Pisces age. So you're beginning to understand what the ages are. The constellational zodiac is very similar to the sidereal zodiac. So for now, let's just think of it as constellations. The vernal equinox, which is also the beginning of the tropical zodiac, is in the constellation Pisces. That's why we're in the Pisces age. 2,000 years from now, this point, vernal equinox, will move into the constellation Aquarius. And then we will be in the Aquarian age. So that's what creates the ages. Okay, let me go back to my PowerPoint. Make sure I didn't skip any important issues here. So as I have in the PowerPoint, second paragraph, this vernal equinox, which is the intersection of the ecliptic plane. The ecliptic plane is the apparent path of the sun through the sky, and the equatorial plane, also known as the celestial equator, which is the equator of the Earth extended out into the sky. That's the vernal equinox. The vernal equinox is called 0 Aries. Oops, I misspelled Aries, A-R-I-E-S, in the tropical zodiac. Okay. Point number 7. The constellations. Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces overlap. Let me show you a picture of this from Wikipedia. Where is my Wikipedia article? Here it is. This is an image from Wikipedia, and the white area here is Aquarius. So there's little green lines here, which is the lines connecting the stars in Aquarius. And over here in the lower right corner, in the gray area, you see it says Capricornus. In other words, Capricorn, which looks kind of like a triangle, almost like a triangle. Notice that the constellation Capricorn is much smaller than the constellation of Aquarius, and it overlaps. This blue line, this light blue line, is the ecliptic plane. So here's the ecliptic plane going through the very big constellation of Aquarius, the smaller constellation of Aquarius, and there's a period of time where a planet traveling along the ecliptic plane will be in both the constellation Aquarius and Capricorn. And by the way, over here is Pisces. It doesn't overlap that much with Aquarius, but Aquarius and Capricorn overlap a lot. So obviously the constellations are not nice little packages of 30 degrees. They're just groups of stars that people connect together to make pictures, and they can overlap, or there could even be gaps between them. Okay, so what you see here in this picture from Wikipedia with Capricorn and Aquarius overlapping is the same thing that we see here, where here's the triangle. This is this triangle of Capricorn. We're looking at it from a different angle. Here the peak of the Capricorn triangle is pointing up. It's just a matter of what perspective you have on the sky. But that's the Capricorn. Here's the Aquarius, and the Aquarius overlapping Capricorn, and here's Pisces over here. Okay. So as this vernal equinox moves 30 degrees, and it goes backwards. It's going to go from Pisces to Aquarius, from the 12th sign to the 11th sign. As it moves from the constellation of Pisces to the constellation of Aquarius, that'll take 30 years, and then another 30 years, it'll be in Capricorn. But obviously, because the constellations are not exactly 30 degrees, it's not going to take exactly 2,160 years to go from one to the other. Now, let me show you some images. I took this image for this is again for March 21st, 1500, and I drew circles around. Let me just drag this into the center. I drew a white, well, not a circle, a white shape around Pisces, and I drew a red circle to that sun, which is at 0 Aries, at the vernal equinox, the beginning of spring. Here's Aquarius, and in yellow, and here's Capricorn in pink. So there's pink around the Capricorn constellation. Now, I'm going to move this forward 2,000 years to the year 3500. And you tell me, where is this sun at the beginning? It's at the beginning of spring, so it's at the vernal equinox. Where would it be 2,000 years from now? In the year, or 2,000 years after the year 1500, it's going to be over here near Aquarius. So I'm going to press the Enter key, which will update this image to the year 3500. I press Enter, and there it is. This vernal equinox is now in Aquarius. To make that a little clearer to you, I captured these images and drew those shapes around it to make it clearer. Okay, it's going a little bit off your screen, but you get the idea. On the left is the year 1500, and there is the vernal equinox in the white area of Pisces. On the right is the year 3500. Let me drag this down. It says March 21st, 1500. On the right, March 21st, 3500. That might be very small for you to read, but it's telling us this is the March 21st, 3500 picture of the heavens. And there is Pisces, and there's Aquarius, and we see that the vernal equinox has moved into the constellation Aquarius. This little grayish blue thing is Neptune. On that particular day, the Sun and Neptune happen to be together. Now, let's go another 1,000 years, and the vernal equinox will move over towards this Capricorn area. So let's go back to the program. Let me clean up my screen here. Okay, and I'm going to change this to the year 4500. So on March 21st, 4500, this vernal equinox is going to move over here close to the beginning of Capricorn. I press the Enter key, and March 21st, 4500, and there it is. This triangle is Capricorn, and there's the sun right at the beginning of Capricorn. Okay, so you've got the idea. Every 2,000 years, this vernal equinox is going to move through the constellations, move through them backwards, and that's creating the ages. Now, what I've left a little bit vague is the difference between a constellational zodiac and a sidereal zodiac. I'll explain that in a minute, but for now, it should be clear to you that the vernal equinox is moving through the constellations, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, Sagittarius, moving backwards through the constellations and coming to a new constellation about every 2,000 years. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so to summarize, point number 8. For the sky on March 21st, 150, not 150, 1500. I got a typo there. On March 21st, 1500, the vernal equinox is in the constellation Pisces. 2,000 years later, in 3500, it's in Aquarius. Another 1,000 years later, in the year 4500, it's moving from Aquarius constellation to the Capricorn constellation. Okay, now, point number 11. As I've said before, the constellations vary in size. So the constellational zodiac, which just means you're using the constellations as your signs, is going to have signs of different sizes. We didn't look at it, but Aries is a very small zodiac sign. much less than 30 degrees. Virgo is way bigger than 30 degrees. We already saw that Aquarius is bigger than Capricorn. They vary in size. Some signs overlap, like we saw that Capricorn and Aquarius overlap. So a planet can be, very often is, a planet can be in two constellations at the same time. Now, point number 12. This is the point I want to get to clear this up. The sidereal zodiac is the same as the constellational zodiac, except it's like a cleaned up version of the constellational zodiac, where we make every sign exactly 30 degrees. So this constellation Aries is also where the sign Aries is, but we make Aries bigger so that it's 30 degrees. We make Virgo smaller so it's 30 degrees. We remove that overlap of Capricorn and Aquarius. So if we go back to our image here, let me use the captured image that I have. Let me just grab this one. Excuse me. I've circled in yellow where the constellation Aquarius is, and in pink I've got the constellation Capricorn. So what we do with this sidereal zodiac is we make Aquarius a little bit smaller, probably. Looks like Capricorn probably needs to be a little bit bigger, and we find some point to divide them. If we remove the overlap, we try to make nice, neat, perfect 30-degree sections. Pisces is so big, it's probably going to need to be smaller. Pisces and Aquarius, they seem to divide almost perfectly. So a point right around here could be the dividing point. So what's happening is we take this sloppy constellational zodiac and we divide it into perfect 30-degree sections. But you can see what the problem is. Exactly where do you put the points? If I put this point here as the division between Aquarius and Pisces, maybe that's going to make my division between Aquarius and Capricorn too far into the Capricorn. So we don't know exactly where this sidereal zodiac is. It's believed that it's roughly where the constellations are. And astrologers have never come to an agreement about this. So different sidereal astrologers place the beginning of the sidereal zodiac in different places. And you can see why. If I'm going to take these constellations and try to make them into nice 30-degree packages, how do I do it? And you might think that after doing all these astrology charts by all these astrologers, the astrologers would come to some agreement based on interpreting charts, but they haven't. They have not come to complete agreement. So there are different sidereal zodiacs, depending on where you think the sidereal zodiac begins. There's no disagreement about the tropical zodiac. We know where it begins. We know where the vernal equinox is, and that's clear. There's no dispute about it. Okay, so that's my point number 13, but exactly where do we place the beginning of the sidereal zodiac? Sidereal astrologers do not agree. And the difference between the tropical zodiac and the sidereal zodiac is called the Ayanamsha, sometimes spelled and pronounced Ayanamsa. So whether you pronounce it Ayanamsha or Ayanamsa, that's the difference between the tropical and the sidereal zodiac. And how quickly does that Ayanamsha change? 1 degree every 72 years. So it's changing by the precession of the equinoxes. And that's why we don't know when the Pisces age began and when the Aquarius age will begin, because we don't know exactly where the beginning of the sidereal zodiac is. Okay, so to summarize here, I'm almost done with our 15 points. Point number 14, we know where the tropical zodiac is. We do not know where the sidereal zodiac is. When I say we do not know, what I really mean is that astrologers disagree about it. Different astrologers who use the sidereal zodiac use different Ayanamshas, different beginning points for this sidereal zodiac. And point number 15, to repeat this definition, the sidereal sign that tropical 0 Aries is in is the astrological age. That's the definition of an astrological age. Whatever sidereal sign the tropical 0 Aries is in is the age we are in. We know where the tropical zodiac is. There's disagreement about where the sidereal zodiac is, and consequently, there's disagreement about exactly when tropical 0 Aries will enter sidereal Aquarius. It'll be sometime within the next few hundred years, but it depends on what Ayanamsha you use. Okay. All right. My last slide, and just to summarize some points. To understand what the astrological ages are, you need to understand what the tropical zodiac is, what the constellations look like, and what the sidereal zodiac is. And you need to understand that the tropical zodiac, which is based on the equinoxes and solstices, 0 Aries is the vernal equinox, 0 Libra is the autumnal equinox, and so on. How they move through the constellations, and I just explained it's very simple. They move 1 degree every 72 years, which is called precession of the equinoxes. Now, there's a lot more to study about this. You can learn about why there's a precession of the equinoxes, how the Earth is like a spinning top, and etc., and different interpretations. And I talk about some of that in the other video, and of course, there's a lot of other resources to read about that. But I want to just go over the fundamentals of what these ages are. I hope that makes it clear. It's about as clear as I can make it, based on the fact it is based on this astronomy, and there's no way to completely understand it without understanding the astronomical foundations of astrology. Thank you very much, my friends. God bless. Namaste.